The glittering lights of a Hollywood premiere, the roaring cheers of millions of fans worldwide, and the relentless flash of paparazzi cameras often construct an illusion of an unshakable, perfect reality for the young stars who occupy the very pinnacle of modern pop culture. For over a decade, a generation of viewers grew up alongside a remarkable cohort of child actors who transformed an experimental, nostalgic science fiction series into an unprecedented global phenomenon, reshaping the landscape of streaming television forever. From the moment the world was introduced to the eerie, mysterious cornfields and the shadowed, retro suburban streets of a fictional Indiana town, these young performers ceased to be ordinary children, stepping instead into a demanding, high-stakes universe where their every developmental milestone was captured on high-definition cameras and scrutinized by millions. The collective journey of this tight-knit cast became a foundational pillar of modern entertainment history, weaving a narrative of camaraderie, supernatural adventure, and overnight success that seemed almost magical from an outside perspective. Yet, beneath the polished surface of continuous media triumphs, lucrative endorsement deals, and widespread critical acclaim lies a deeply complex, often exhausting psychological reality that few onlookers truly comprehend. The transition from an intensely collaborative, decade-long professional environment back into the mundane cadence of ordinary life is rarely a seamless narrative of celebration and victory. More frequently, it is a jarring, emotionally turbulent passage marked by a profound sense of loss and identity disorientation. When the final cameras stop rolling, the sets are meticulously dismantled, and the fictional universes that sustain these actors throughout their entire formative years vanish into thin air. The sudden, echoing silence can become overwhelmingly deafening. It is within this quiet, post-production vacuum that the heavy toll of prolonged stardom begins to surface, revealing that the bonds forged under the intense pressure of global fame are subject to the same fragile dynamics, misunderstandings, and emotional vulnerabilities that define any ordinary human relationship. Before we dive deeper into the hidden emotional struggles and the surprising, behind-the-scenes friction that quietly developed among your favorite stars as this legendary era reached its ultimate conclusion, take a brief moment to subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you never miss an exclusive, in-depth look into the true stories behind the biggest names in the entertainment industry today. The reality of dedicating an entire childhood to a single monumental creative endeavor means that the boundaries between an actor's true self and their fictional counterpart inevitably begin to blur, creating a unique psychological landscape where saying goodbye to a character feels remarkably like mourning a piece of one's own soul. For Millie Bobby Brown, who stepped into the intensely demanding role of a mysterious telekinetic young girl at the tender age of just 10 years old, the series was not merely a highly successful acting job or a launching pad for a brilliant Hollywood career, but rather the foundational framework of her entire existence. Year after year, as the show evolved from a sleeper hit into a towering cultural juggernaut spanning 5 massive seasons over a 10-year period, the soundstages and location shoots became her primary reality, eclipsing the traditional experiences of adolescence and family life. To spend a decade growing up in front of a lens means that your co-stars become far more than mere colleagues. They become surrogate siblings, parental figures, and the only individuals on the planet who truly understand the unique, suffocating pressure of your specific reality. When that monumental chapter finally closed, the emotional aftermath was not a triumphant departure into the sunset, but rather a sudden, disorienting descent into an unexpected psychological valley that left the young actress struggling to find her footing in a world without the character that had defined her for so long. The abrupt conclusion of this decade-long journey triggered a wave of profound introspection and vulnerability, prompting the actress to candidly confront the deep emotional residue left behind by years of intense production schedules and complex interpersonal dynamics. In a recent, remarkably raw appearance during a live recording of a prominent entertainment podcast in the heart of New York City, she pulled back the curtain on the intense vulnerability that shadowed her departure from the beloved franchise. Shocking fans with her honesty, she openly confessed to falling into a distinct, heavy cloud of depression following the completion of the final season, a psychological admission that stood in stark contrast to her public reputation as an inherently optimistic, happy-go-lucky individual who usually navigates the chaotic entertainment industry with effortless grace. This unexpected emotional collapse caught her completely off guard, serving as a powerful reminder that no amount of fame, wealth, or industry success can shield a young person from the profound grief of an ending that alters the very fabric of their social world. The realization that the daily, intense contact with the people who had populated her life more consistently than her own biological family was suddenly coming to a permanent end created an overwhelming wave of anxiety regarding the future of those relationships. Driven by an urgent, deeply human need to ensure that the monumental bonds of her childhood would not simply evaporate into showbiz history, she found herself embarking on an emotional mission to secure her place in the hearts of her former castmates, leading to a series of intense, vulnerable interactions that revealed just how much hidden tension had accumulated behind the scenes over the years. The emotional turbulence that followed the final wrap party manifested as a desperate, heartfelt drive to seek forgiveness and ensure that a decade of shared history would not dissolve into cold, professional distance. This deep-seated anxiety compelled the young actress to initiate a series of intensely raw, vulnerable conversations with her core castmates, a group that included David Harbour, Finn Wolfhard, Gaten Matarazzo, Noah Schnapp, Caleb McLaughlin, and Winona Ryder, in an effort to clear the air of any lingering friction or unspoken grievances that may have quietly accumulated over 10 years of high-pressure filming. She found herself offering sweeping apologies for any past misunderstandings or moments where she might have unintentionally caused offense. She repeatedly questioned them, driven by a poignant fear of abandonment, asking if they were truly still friends and pleading for reassurance that they would not simply stop talking to her now that the professional obligation of the show had dissolved. This desperate attempt to mend fences culminated in a profoundly lonely moment of emotional release on a beautiful beach, where away from the cameras, the media handlers, and the public eye, she sat alone on the sand and wept uncontrollably as the sheer weight of the ending finally crushed her spirits. This raw vulnerability highlighted a stark reality that fans rarely consider, which is that spending your formative years on a television set means your colleagues inevitably see you at your absolute worst, navigating awkward teenage phases, emotional outbursts, and the immense stress of maintaining a global phenomenon. For Millie Bobby Brown, the series finale was not just a career milestone, but the severing of an umbilical cord to a collective family unit that she had genuinely seen more often than her own biological parents, making the definitive goodbye an almost unbearable psychological trauma. Yet, as details of her emotional outreach began to circulate, it became increasingly apparent to industry insiders and dedicated followers alike that her profound anxiety about these relationships was not entirely unfounded. Nor was it merely the product of standard post-show blues. Beneath the public declarations of lifelong love and sibling-like bonds, the closed sets of the massive streaming production had actually played host to significant interpersonal friction and genuine professional conflicts that nearly derailed the harmony of the final season. The most prominent and jarring of these conflicts involved a deeply complex, escalating feud between the young leading actress and her primary adult co-star, David Harbour, who played her character's fiercely protective adoptive father, Chief Jim Hopper. This on-screen dynamic, defined by a touching narrative of a gruff, broken lawman learning to love and protect a traumatized telekinetic young girl, was a cornerstone of the series' emotional gravity, making the revelation of severe real-world tension between the two actors incredibly jarring for the global audience. The friction between the two stars apparently reached a critical breaking point just ahead of the highly anticipated premiere of the fourth season, developing into a full-blown professional crisis behind closed doors that required the intervention of network executives, according to highly credible investigative reports published by major media outlets. The young actress went as far as to file a formal internal complaint against Harbour before the cameras even began rolling for the fifth and final season of the historic franchise. This formal action triggered an immediate, highly sensitive internal investigation by the streaming platform's production leadership, who were forced to scrutinize the behavior and workplace conduct of one of their most prominent adult stars while attempting to preserve the fragile stability of their multi-million-dollar flagship property. Although the definitive official outcome of that corporate inquiry was never publicly disclosed to the media, the tangible aftershocks of the investigation were acutely felt on the physical set throughout the entirety of the final season's grueling production schedule. In an unprecedented move that underscored the sheer severity of the workplace divide, the leading actress reportedly refused to film her final, emotional scenes for the series finale unless she was accompanied at all times by a personal representative who remained physically present on the set to monitor interactions. This defensive measure indicated a profound breakdown of trust and a desire to establish an emotional buffer zone, transforming what should have been a nostalgic, celebratory farewell into a tightly controlled, legally guarded professional environment. David Harbour himself eventually broke his silence on the matter, confirming the existence of intense, behind-the-scenes drama during a major industry interview, where he attempted to downplay the severity of the rift by comparing the conflict to normal, messy family dynamics. He argued that when people spend a decade working in such close quarters, they are bound to engage in occasional arguments and fierce disagreements, suggesting that their eventual reconciliation was a testament to a deeper, underlying affection. However, his candid reflections also shed light on the chaotic nature of modern television production, as he revealed that numerous other individuals on the set had actively involved themselves in the dispute, complicating the situation and amplifying the tension until the two principal actors finally cleared everyone else out of the way to have a direct, honest conversation. Harbour lamented the modern media environment, noting that people in the contemporary entertainment industry have become paralyzingly terrified of open communication and deeply afraid of displaying raw human vulnerability. A cultural shift that makes navigating public scrutiny incredibly difficult for old-school performers. While he insisted that they ultimately quash the beef and return to a place of mutual adoration, the reveal of such a stark systemic rift shattered the fairytale illusion of perfect on-set harmony, leaving fans to wonder how much of the emotional exhaustion visible in the final episodes was brilliant acting, and how much was the real-world toll of a decade-long psychological crucible. The revelation of this intense workplace friction serves as a powerful reminder that the monumental cultural phenomena we consume from the comfort of our living rooms are built upon the fragile foundation of real human lives, real emotions, and very real psychological sacrifices. When we examine the incredible journey of these actors, we begin to see that the true miracle of the series was not just the groundbreaking special effects or the brilliant storytelling, but the fact that a group of children managed to navigate the treacherous waters of global superstitas without losing their humanity entirely. For Millie Bobby Brown, the end of this era represents a profound redefinition of her identity, an ultimate step away from the comforting shadow of Eleven, the character that shielded her and simultaneously exposed her to the world for 10 extraordinary years. This journey, which began in relative obscurity when a group of wide-eyed children gathered for a modest retro-themed pilot episode, culminated in a historic cultural milestone that redefined the entire entertainment industry, proving that the bonds forged in the fires of shared childhood stardom are entirely unbreakable, even when strained by the intense pressures of corporate expectations and personal growth. The ultimate resolution of the conflict between the young actress and her seasoned co-star highlights a profound maturity that can only be earned through years of public scrutiny and shared artistic struggle, revealing that true reconciliation requires a willingness to cast aside the protective armor of public relations and engage in raw, uncomfortable honesty. As the final episodes finally reached audiences around the globe, viewers could not help but look at the screen with a renewed sense of awe, recognizing that the deep emotional resonance of the performances was fueled by a decade of genuine life experience, complex relationships, and a poignant, real-world goodbye that was happening simultaneously behind the scenes. This complex tapestry of camaraderie, intense creative passion, and behind-the-scenes turmoil underscores the unique burden carried by this specific generation of Hollywood stars, who were tasked with carrying the weight of a multi-billion-dollar franchise while simultaneously trying to figure out who they were as individuals in a world that refused to let them grow up in private. The profound depression and anxiety that the young actress experienced upon the completion of the project was not a sign of weakness, but a completely natural human response to the sudden, monumental shift in her reality, a testament to the absolute devotion she poured into her craft and her deep love for the makeshift family that surrounded her. Her brave decision to share these struggles openly on a public platform challenges the long-standing industry taboo surrounding mental health in Hollywood, breaking down the carefully curated facades of perfection to show young fans that it is completely acceptable to feel lost, broken, and deeply overwhelmed by the major endings and transitions of life. By reaching out to her fellow cast members to mend fences and secure their lifelong friendships, she effectively rescued her childhood from the corporate vacuum of the entertainment industry, ensuring that the human connections forged in that fictional Indiana town would endure long after the sets were destroyed, and the streaming algorithms moved on to the next big thing. This emotional journey highlights the remarkable evolution of a young girl who transformed from a vulnerable child actor into a fiercely independent, self-aware woman and producer, capable of commanding her own narrative and navigating the treacherous waters of Hollywood on her own terms. The stories of her co-stars, from Finn Wolfhard's evolution as a filmmaker to Noah Schnapp's brave personal milestones, further illustrate that this cast was never just a collection of faces on a screen, but a living, breathing community that grew up together under the most extraordinary circumstances imaginable. As the final notes of the iconic, synth-heavy theme music fade into history, the legacy of this generation of actors remains securely cemented in the hearts of millions, serving as a timeless monument to the power of youth, the beauty of shared creative sacrifice, and the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming global fame. The triumph of their collective journey lies in their ability to emerge from the intense pressure of a decade-long spotlight with their bonds intact, their artistic integrity preserved, and their hearts open to the infinite possibilities of the future, proving that the magic they captured on screen was merely a reflection of the deep, resilient humanity they possessed all along. Ultimately, the story of this legendary television series is a story about the profound beauty and immense pain of growing up, a reminder that every great adventure must eventually come to an end so that a new, even more meaningful chapter can begin in the grand